Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of the Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Southwest Virginia fishing report with Matt Reilly. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great, Marvin. How are you?
As always, just trying to stay out of trouble and getting ready for the Easter Bunny.
Yeah, yeah. The little guy got his picture taken with the Easter Bunny downtown last week, so it's officially spring. Things are starting to happen.
There you go. You didn't go to the hardware store and buy any chicks or ducklings, did you?
I didn't. I can't speak for my wife, but I haven't gotten home yet.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, it's funny. We were talking before we started recording, and, weather kind of in our part of the world has kind of been a little bit all over the place, but mercifully, we've been getting a decent amount of rain.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. Of course, the last day I had on the river was kind of my springtime dream. It's been rivers have been full. We've had fairly consistent rain, but nothing like crazy heavy. I wouldn't even call the rivers high. They're just real happy and in a good place. We've had some, every couple of days, some pretty cloudy, kind of drizzly weather. Yesterday we fished most of the day in the rain, heavy overcast, throwing some bait fish flies at smallmouth that have a great time. It's going to be dry for the next couple of days. Kind of temps in the seasonable to slightly warm, 50 to 70 degree range. And then we got some more rain coming next week. So I think things are looking pretty good.
Yeah, and so can you give us a little bit more detail on the pre-spawn smallie front?
Yeah, we've, again, depending on where you are, water temps and day to day overnight lows and things like that are going to dictate where you start out water temp wise and where you end. And, whether you have sun on the water or clouds, will dictate how much of a temp bump you get over the course of the day. But, generally speaking, in the high 40s to mid 50s range is where we've been at for the last week or so. And that's a really nice place to be. Fish are real happy to chase flies. Certain days you need a little bit longer suspension, longer pause. But, with a little bit of water in the river too, some pace to the stream flow, there's a kind of an incentive and a need for those fish to eat, and they're kind of pinned up in fairly predictable places too. So like I said, I'm real happy on that front. We've mainly been able to avoid any kind of deep dredging at this point. Had a couple of days in the last week and a half, 2 weeks where we've had some cooler overnight temps. We're starting out fairly cold, where we've had to drop down a little bit, but for the most part, swim flies, different streamers has kind of been where we've been staying, which again is very happy place to be.
There you go. And got a question for you from Brenner. He wanted to get your thoughts on your favorite crayfish pattern colors for smallmouth.
Yeah. I keep it pretty simple. I'm with I guess this goes for most flies that I fish. I'm not a you gotta have 12 different color schemes in the box kind of guy. I realistically fish maybe 4 or 5 different colors over the course of the whole year max for crayfish imitations. The go-to is always going to be, the crayfishy color, kind of a tan brown, just kind of what people might call green pumpkin, a little bit of olive, in the conventional world. Big fan of black and blue, black and purple is good. If you've got a little bit of extra color or stain in the water, and that's more or less just for some contrast and just showing up a little bit better. Particularly in cooler water, I'm a believer in the fact that if the water's cold and you've got a little bit of stain, those fish, their reactive distance is a little bit lower or smaller when it's cold, because then they're not going to like move a long distance to take a fly. And so it very basically kind of the sooner they can become aware of that prey item in their sphere of awareness, the easier it is for them to catch or go grab if it's real cold and they're not, moving around real quickly. So black and blue, black and purple. Purple is always a good kind of accent color for smallmouth, particularly on crayfish flies, I think. So like kind of a brownish purple, again, what they call peanut butter and jelly in the conventional world, with tube jigs and jigging pigs and stuff like that. I guess maybe another color scheme, I guess you could call it, would be just that typical kind of tan brown with a little more detail. This is something that I do just more or less to help me, and I don't think it hurts for the fish. As the water drops out later in the spring or into the summer, I'll start tying my crayfish flies a little bit lighter than my standard kind of springtime bugs. So if I put a large or an extra large dumbbell eye on a size 2 or 1 or 1/0 crayfish, I might put a medium on that size 2, and just to help me keep track of them, I'll add like a little kind of light orange nail polish to the tips of the claws on them, just to help me keep track of which ones are which. And the other way to think about that is, as the water gets a little bit clearer, a little bit of detail isn't a bad thing. So maybe that's another color scheme. And then the other one that's relevant would be, late June or early July, when we're having a crayfish molt, and the fish can tend to key in on crayfish pretty heavily for a week or week and a half or 2. Something a little bit lighter, like more of a peachy tan kind of color is a good one to have. A lot of times they'll eat the standard fare then too, but that just might be a little bit more realistic. But yeah, I would say don't overcomplicate it too much. Look at the food, try to match those colors, and to that end, some creeks, some rivers do have fairly uniquely colored crayfish. So maybe check into that. But otherwise, it's just natural colors, and then maybe a little kind of a secondary color just for different water conditions. Like those dark contrasty colors.
Got it. And, do you like, different platforms in terms of presentation? Like, is it for you mostly fishing a kind of a jig style presentation, or do you have some other kind of presentation flavors you like with your crayfish?
Yeah. So there's a kind of 2 main ways that I fish them. One would be just a jig. And I talk about conventional gear a lot because I do both a lot. But that typical, my favorite platform, I guess, is the Clawdad Chuck's pattern. And I tie a pile of different kind of variations on it. But that's a jig style dredging bug with dumbbell eyes and not a lot of buoyancy. Meant to get down fairly quickly. Going to fish it with a leader that's fairly small in diameter in the lower half, just to help it get down a little bit. And yeah, I fish those on floating lines, just so that you can really fish the fly, as opposed to a sink tip or an intermediate or something where there's water tension on the line, dragging the fly around. And in that scenario, you can use the tip of the fly line, which should also be a fairly visible fly line, heavy-headed streamer line. Something that I have, it's kind of come into my program lately, is I guess it was maybe 2 years ago, Scientific Anglers changed the color of the Titan Long streamer line, which is the one I really like for floating line. And now they've got kind of a like camo, dark brown, olive tip, which is not what you want if you're trying to use your fly line tip as an indicator. So lines like the older Titans, the bass bug, which is a heavy-headed fly line that's a lighter, more visible color, are good. Just kind of bouncing them on the bottom, watching the fly line tip for any kind of stop or twitch, or there's some timing involved there, where you want to try to identify when that fly hits bottom and just bump it either with a strip or a rod tip jig or a little mend. As soon as you see that, just to hop it up off the bottom, that'll keep it from getting snagged. If you see kind of a sharper twit or pop, or if you go to mend it or jig it or whatever, when you see that line start to slow and you feel some resistance or something fishy, then you're just giving them the bill bance with the rod after stripping the slack in. That's one way to go about it. The other way that I like to do it is and do it with the same fly more or less. You just change things up a little bit lighter dumbbell eyes. You can go bigger in diameter on the rubber leg size. So instead of fishing like a medium rubber leg, you fish a large rubber leg, which gives the fly a little more buoyancy in the water or a little more drag as it sinks. And you can kind of swim those a little bit more as the water warms up. If it's if for some reason you feel the need to fish a crayfish and not be on the bottom, which again can come into play kind of like late spring at times, early summer. You could fish those with a little bit larger diameter leader too, again, just for some drag, keep it up off the bottom a little bit, suspend it a little bit more. The other fly that I do employ a fair bit in that situation, which I, kind of, from one perspective, I kind of don't understand what it is about the fly, but those tequilis, the fully mill pattern, is a great one when fish are just being kind of lethargic, moody, and it really does not look much like a crayfish at all. But I think they eat them as crayfish, and that fly kind of again employs some of those same tying strategies as I mentioned in kind of my more buoyant swim crayfish kind of style with the clawhead, where it's got 3 pairs of 2 rubber legs that just kind of stick out perpendicular to the body, kind of act as a parachute a little bit. Some marabou, a really kind of like bushy body material, and not a ton of weight, but enough to get it down in the water column. And those, you can dead drift, you can fish them a lot slower, but you can kind of fish them like lower middle water column. And that's a good one too. You can mess with those colors. The standard that you buy is like a copper with yellow legs and yellow black tail. I'll fish some with a kind of more muted kind of root beery tan body with like peach or brown marabou and some different colored rubber legs. Not a bad idea. Just kind of a buggy, smaller, more subtle crayfish, I guess. Yeah, that's kind of where I tend to live. I'm really not a guy that likes to spend a long time tying crayfish flies, because you will leave a lot of them on the bottom, and it just hurts too bad to spend an hour and 8 different materials on a crayfish and then snag them up on the second cast.
You don't do that, only your clients, right?
Yeah, I haven't lost a fly since I was 12.
Yeah, there you go. Well, folks, we love questions on the articulate fly. You can email them to us or DM us on social media. whatever's easiest for you. And if we use your question, I will send you some articulate fly swag. And we're drawing for some cool stuff from Matt at the end of the season. And Matt, before I let you go, because I just saw your email, I know you've got some last minute pre-spawn smallie openings, but why don't you let folks know kind of what you have in your calendar, how to reach out and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, good call, man. I guess we nailed the timing on that one. I had 3 days just pop open. Some folks had to move their calendar around, kind of prime pre-spawn streamer fishing smallmouth days, and those are April 3rd and the 8th and the 9th. So not that far off, but I mean, right in the sweet spot of, fish are really starting to blow up right now. They're getting real fat because, they're starting to chase and eat a lot. Water's still fairly cold. They're just going to get heavier. And with the water we have in the river right now and the kind of consistent, kind of rainy, wet, cloudy weather we're having, things have been real nice. So those are there. I do have like 2 other dates that just opened up for the rest of the year. I think they're July 30th and September 29th or 30th. But other than that, we're pretty much taken care of on the smallmouth front. And we are starting to book some musky stuff for the fall and winter. Always booking trout trips. We've had some really cool dry fly days the last week or so. And that's only going to get better through, May, June. And then as the summer wears on, terrestrial attractor, dry fly kind of stuff is going to come into effect. So booking a lot of stuff, but the smallmouth stuff's real limited. So if you want to get out and poke some smallmouth this year, give me a shout. And I got a couple of things I can do with the calendar to get you out. But contact info is on the website, and that's MattReillyFlyFishing.com. And just reach out however you feel best.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, listen, folks, you owe it to yourself to get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Matt.
Thanks, Marvin.